Hello, and welcome to Sean's Check-In. Feel free to follow all of my videos and watch them there over on my professional Facebook page, Sean P. Daughtry, LICSW, or over on YouTube at Sean D, Sean's Check-In, or Sean's Little Check-In. So today I thought I would get down to some nitty-gritty basic material that I keep referencing a lot and have done so in other videos of mine, but I've not fully gone into. And that's a basic set of concepts that I operate from as a psychotherapist and as much as possible actually in my own personal life as a human being. And I've made reference to them briefly without getting into them. So I thought I would finally define them today, and maybe not all of them in this one video, maybe over a few videos, depending how long this takes without being too long. I will start with some today and possibly finish defining the rest of them in another video. And that is the 8 C's or 8 qualities of self. They all start with the letter C. And Dr. Richard Schwartz, as I've referenced before, came up with these qualities in collaboration with other individuals as well. And then he wrote about them at length in his exposition of internal family systems theory that he started to lay down on paper in the mid-1980s, and then really more fully by the 1990s in a few seminal texts of his. He's actually out with the second edition quite recently of Internal Family Systems Therapy, jointly written by someone else with him. I want to say Martha Sweezy, but don't quote me on that. So if you look it up and it's another author's name and not that one, then I was wrong. But it is someone else he's collaborated with recently in writing an update about that kind of theory of methodology with doing psychotherapy, but also it applies very much to the human personality and how people relate with each other through this framework called internal family systems. And so the 8 C's of self that he writes about are actually very helpful, clear, definable concepts that really give a sense of what self actually is and make self more understandable and accessible than this more abstract concept that for the longest time has been talked about in many circles in life, including New Age circles, including other kinds of psychotherapy, without it often being clearly defined. And the 8 C's of self is a real clear definition of what self constitutes in each and every individual, that we all have the capacity to express and have these 8 C's of self. So I'll just start with them in no particular order, except that a few that I've experienced as ones that I particularly often find myself talking about and leading with working with people in my therapy practice. But they are all important equally. So you've heard me touch upon quite frequently, if you've watched my other videos, the concept of compassion. So that is a natural, obviously, quality of self. And what exactly is compassion? And I've said before, it's feeling care for and the well-being of others in general. So whether it be for the person in front of you or others long distance away that you're thinking of or hearing about, it's that general care for the well-being of humanity or for life in general, not just human beings. And I've talked about how compassion is very helpful to have, obviously, for any part of yourself or life that you're dealing with that's difficult and or presenting difficulty in a struggle, feeling compassion for others that are having a difficult time, or even exhibiting unpleasant behaviors and understanding that they're coming from a place of pain and feeling compassion for them as they're struggling, even as they're being rageful or what have you. So that is as a way to hold a sense of care for humanity is through, or and for oneself also, is through practicing compassion. Um, and I'm sure compassion actually is actually experienced bodily and through the brain. Apparently, I don't know details of this, but I have heard from another therapist I took a workshop with that compassion is apparently experienced through the pleasure centers of the brain. Whereas empathy, which is important too, but a little bit of empathy can go a long way at times. And as I've said before in a previous video, can actually, if you're really soaked up in empathy, it can be paralyzing. But empathy itself is experienced more through the pain centers of the brain. I don't know other details beyond that, although it's been scientifically written about if you want to go look it up. But I think it makes a lot of intuitive sense to me. So that's compassion there. Another quality of self that I try and lead with, whether I'm sitting with clients or people I know around me, is that of curiosity. And curiosity is the natural interest in learning or in finding out more about others or the world around you, simply for the sake of doing that, with no particular agenda of like learning to then achieve a particular goal, but just learning for the sake of just knowing more, out of just an openness to know. That's what is meant by curiosity here as another quality of core true self. Um, so there are those two qualities there that are very important that, again, I make it a point to lead with when I'm working with clients, and more lead with as much as possible in my own daily life with nature around me, including people or otherwise. And then another one, while not taking too long here, going down the list, and I'm looking at a cheat sheet of notes, as you may be seeing. It's just helping to keep me focused as I go down the line here about defining these terms that constitute core self. Another one is confidence. And that's the feeling, as I understand it, feeling certain and competent about one's abilities or perceptions or a sense of self having value, just feeling assuredness in any or all of those domains. So one may feel confident on their job, that they know, that you are good at your job and you can feel confident in that. So that's an area where confidence may show up well in your life. The more one feels confident across all areas of life, the better. But it is easy, of course, for confidence to feel challenging to access in maybe certain areas or situations in life versus others. I think that's the case for a lot of us. But of course, the more confidence you feel in your life at large, no matter where you are and who you're with, the more you're feeling a sense of self or in yourself when you're experiencing confidence. So another one is the quality of calm. That's a natural state of peacefulness. Of course, one knows when one is feeling calm, you're just relaxed and at peace in the moment. And of course, if you're naturally feeling calm, that's especially best versus artificially brought to a place of calmness through, say, medication or some other substance that brings you to a state of calm, but that in doing so is medicating away and masking off away other feeling states that are there, such as fearfulness, anger, what have you, that otherwise would be getting in the way of feeling calm if you were not taking some substance. So when you can access a natural state of calm, for example, through a meditation practice, that is an excellent way to access one's natural inner state of calm. That is a wonderful thing. But it is a natural quality of self, as understood within the internal family systems model of thinking about human beings and the world at large. Um, Another quality here, as I go along, watching the clock more or less to not take too long, is the quality of clarity. And clarity is the experience and the ability to see phenomena clearly and understand it clearly before oneself. Whether that be a situation that has been imponderable or difficult to figure out, or another person, or something about oneself that behaviorally that's been hard to understand, like why do I do this? Why am I reacting this way? What's this about? Or a project that you can't quite figure out. There's some murkiness about it. It's any kind of experience of just seeing and perceiving, if you will, and understanding something, some phenomena clearly. And of course, the more clarity we have, the better we feel from there in terms of feeling calm, even, and confident around what to do next, how to respond to some phenomena next, a situation or what have you, because we finally have reached some more clarity. Um, so clarity at first is like, to reach it, for example, is really literally like, or metaphorically speaking, is like seeing a pond that's all murky, but as the murk clears away that maybe was stirred up in the first place by throwing a stone in it, or walking through it, and mud getting all stirred up. After the murk or mud settles down and the pond is clear and you can see clearly to the bottom of it, that's an example, a tangible, concrete example of perceiving things clearly, or clarity being reached. So the more clarity that we experience with our perceptions and understanding of those perceptions, the better. Another one of the 8 C's of self is courage. Now, courage is, I see that and understand that as the ability to do what is, to speak of or act on what is right or correct or best to do in a situation, while possibly feeling fear in the face of perceived or real adversity. So that's what I perceive courage is. It's also talked about as bravery. One may feel afraid to do something that's important and must get done or needs to get done for progress to happen next, in some way or another, for a problem to be resolved. It may feel scary to do. There's risk that one or others may be harmed or worse, but you go through and do that risky deed anyway. And in doing so, you are exhibiting or expressing courage. And it's an interesting word because, as some of you watching this may know, courage is, the root word of that, I believe, is a Latin word, cor, meaning heart. So it's acting from the heart in the face of adversity, where it may be easier to stay safe and not push for some change that would lead to some progress in some way or another. And therefore, it results in being courageous. The last one that is listed here of the 8 C's of self is connectedness. So connectedness, as I understand it, is the experience of feeling fully, positively, and mutually engaged with one or more people and or one's surroundings or beyond. So it's pretty straightforward, and these qualities all interlink. So, for example, thinking and acting and feeling from a place of compassion and curiosity towards others can then open up the possibility and likelihood of connectedness then being experienced. So that's an example of how some of those qualities work and hang together. Obviously, if there's more clarity that comes to you over a situation, then it can be easier to then take courageous action, for example. And then courageous action can lead to some positive change of more connectedness, for example, with others, or more of a sense of connectedness in oneself, connectedness in oneself. And then result in a sense of more confidence for taking that courageous action that led to more connectedness. So they all interweave together, is what I'm saying. And that is all of that hangs together, those 8 C's, to form a sense of self. Now, we go in and out as human beings of experiencing being more in ourselves versus not in ourselves in more extreme parts or perspectives, if you will, that are led instead of by these 8 qualities, more led by extreme negative emotion and negative beliefs and feeling states that all happen. And they come and go according to our histories, and can get in the way of us coming from a place of self. And many of us obviously may feel more of a sense of self in certain ways with some of these C's, yet not in others. Maybe we can perceive a lot clearly, but it's hard to feel that we can access courage or confidence to then take good constructive action, for example. Or maybe a person is, say, very creative, but they're not sure clearly where to go next with expressing their creativity further. For example, it's maybe they're a very good, talented artist, but they're not connected up yet to selling their art more, or what have you. And it's just a matter of figuring things out more, where to go next with that, with their creativity that they're expressing from their core true self into then doing better and feeling more confident in the world after successfully selling their art. That's just like a little off the top human example I could tangibly think of in terms of how the 8 qualities of self can be experienced in uneven ways. Of course, if we're leading all the time with all of these 8 C's of self that we're expressing and feeling accessible to, engaging with, and all the time, that we're all living, when we're living from all of these qualities of self at all times, it's just, of course, an incredible state of being to be in. And that would be, I guess you would say, a real moment of self-actualization, particularly if it's an ongoing, long, sustained moment. But of course, the world being what it is and humans being what they are, we go in and out more of being more in self moment by moment than others. But the more burdens that you clear, emotional, psychological burdens that you clear out of your system, that basically gum up access to self, the better, so that you can get to feeling more self-led and self-experiencing in the world more. And I've touched upon burdens, emotional burdens that get in the way of self and expressing self in a previous video. So I hope that that's all pretty straightforward about the 8 C's of self and what therefore I mean by when I talk about self, which I'm talking about from an internal family systems perspective, that I think just makes a lot of sense as a human being. So I'm always glad to define the terms that I'm talking about and talking from in terms of my general framework. And I just thought that it would be helpful to offer this to anyone who watches. Obviously, and the great thing is that the 8 C's of self, as I've said before, has been well defined online. Many other people now talk about this concept and this set of concepts within the concept of self. And that's a great thing. But I think it's good to keep passing this information along, because it just makes such natural sense. And I think it is something that the more this is understood by people at large, the better. It contributes to coming from a good functioning place on an individual basis and on a group basis and on a national basis. That's what I really believe behind living from the 8 C's of self. So thank you for your time with listening and watching. And I will be back again to do another one of these check ins.